Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Little Apothecary and welcome back to my channel.
We are now into the month of July, halfway through the year, and I've got some 2024 reading stats for you guys so far this year, as well as some of my top reads I've had so far this year. So these stats I have a caveat for, and they might not be 100% accurate, but I think my spreadsheet does a pretty good job of summing them up. Some of these stats may come from books that I'm currently reading and haven't finished yet. Some may come from DNFs, and some may come from ones that carried over from last year, but this gives you a good general idea of where my reading has been at this year. So far in 2024, I have read 53 books, which include 2 DNFs. This equals out to roughly 18,393 pages. In audiobook, I've listened to what equals out to 16 days, 10 hours, and 24 minutes listened. That is a lot of listening hours. 13 of these books were print, 28 of these were digital, and 16 were audio. Don't try to do the math on some of these stats because some of them were mixtures for immersion reads and some of them were, just guesses. So some of the math might not add up, so just bear with me. 31 of these were fantasy, 8 were classics, and 7 were sci-fi. As I'm looking at these stats, I'm wondering, did I read that many classics this year? Doesn't feel like that, but according to the stats, I did. Now for our top reads of 2024. Based on the call pile scores that I have, we actually have a tie for our second highest. So I'm just starting straight off with the second highest because we have 4 books that tied with the same exact score of 9.14. So this is the start of my top 5, I guess. My top 5 reads in 2024 so far include The Gathering Storm by Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan. This, I believe, was book 11 in the Wheel of Time series. I'm now on the last book and I'm enjoying it. But The Gathering Storm, I love this book so much. 9.14 equals 5 out of 5 stars, just in case you all were wondering. So all of these books are 5-star reads. I was just so blown away by The Gathering Storm. I thought Robert Jordan did a fantastic job of taking up the baton and running with it from Robert Jordan. For all of these books, I'm going to also talk very briefly about my top call pile score in each one of these books. For The Gathering Storm, that was intrigue. I was intrigued this entire read, and y'all know Wheel of Time books are big books. I loved this one so much. And this book came at the perfect time for me because I was starting to feel a little bit of that slog. I was like, oh my gosh, can we just finish this series already? Which I still feel, but I'm also enjoying it. So this made me excited to finish up the last couple books in the Wheel of Time series. Next up, we have Beach Read by Emily Henry. This was a contemporary romance, a buddy read I read with my bestie, Leslie. I really, really loved this book. I knew I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't know I was going to love it as much as I did. And our top call pile writing for Beach Read is actually Emily Henry's writing style. I was just sucked in by her writing style. I was eating up every single word that she gave us. I loved it all. So kudos to Emily Henry. I can't wait to read the rest of her books one day. Our third book we have tied in second place is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. Y'all know how much I loved this series. This is the Elements of Cadence series. This was book 2 in that duology. Rebecca Ross's writing is just so darn magical. I absolutely loved it. The way that I described this duology is basically if a Game of Thrones or a Song of Ice and Fire series was a romance. Now, yes, we do get some kind of romance in that series, But imagine that in a romantic setting, and that's what you would get with the elements of cadence. It has like that kind of still Game of Thrones vibes. We're in what's like a Scottish lore landscape where we got warring tribes trying to take control out of each other's hands, families that hate each other and trying to kill each other, kidnap each other, that kind of vibe, but with a romance at the heart of it and in the romantic magical scenery of Scottish lore. I loved it so much. The top setting for A Fire Endless for me was the atmosphere and the setting. That's what made it so magical, is that we were transplanted into that setting with that magical atmosphere, and it just whisked me away. And then the last book that we have in our tie for second place is one that was a complete surprise to me. That is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. This one came out of nowhere. This was a patron pick for me, picked by Leslie at the Nerdy Narrative. We buddy read it together. This is, if you missed my review for it, this is a serial killer romance, and I did not know how much I loved this book until I was reading it. I loved it so much. Our top two call pile categories for Butcher and Blackbird were the writing style and the intrigue. Something about Bryn Weaver's writing style just sucked me in. I was interested this entire time. I was intrigued the whole time. I had no idea how any of this was going to pan out. I knew where it was going to end up, but I didn't know how or when, and I loved it all. That leaves us with our top read of 2024 with a total of 9.25 call pile rating. Now I say call pile, but this was a nonfiction book, so it had a slightly different rating system with only 4 categories. But that book is Becky Lynch, The Man, Not Your Average Girl, written by Rebecca Quinn. This was the memoir written by one of my favorite WWE superstars. I did an immersion read of this with the audiobook that Rebecca Quinn narrated herself. I loved this book so much. Our top category here is the audiobook narration, because Rebecca Quinn narrates her own audiobook with such passion and love, and you can hear it in every word that she reads. You can feel those emotions coming through during different times in the book, and she just did a fantastic job of narrating this. Her pacing was great. It felt like I was listening to a Becky Lynch promo, and it was just so good. So those are my top reads so far in 2024. Not a lot of surprises. If you've seen my reviews, you'll know that these are some of the books I absolutely loved the most this year. This year has felt like it's been a very long year, and I forgot that I read some of these books this year and not last year. But those are my top reads of this year according to our ratings. Let me know in the comments below, what were some of your favorite reads so far this year in 2024? Were you surprised by any of these? Because I wasn't, but I think the only thing I was surprised with is that 4 of them ended up with the same exact score, rounding out our top 5. So that's it for now, and keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.